I am super honored to be here with all of you tonight. And the first thing that I just want to say that's a part of my practice is just to thank everyone and be in gratitude for all of the work that you do, for everyone who is on this panel and who worked to put it together, and all of your organizations, and then everyone also who's attending and listening in, who's, I'm sure playing various roles and working across the country and maybe even beyond. I just really want to say thank you very, very much for everything that you do. So I really appreciate being here. I want to say, first of all, I enter this conversation as a revolutionary. And I'll talk a little bit about our context, and I apologize, I don't have a presentation, but I will try to communicate through my words and give you a picture of what is going on here in Pennsylvania that I'm working on. I live in Pennsylvania. I'm a lifelong resident of Pennsylvania. And the context that we have here is a state of 13 million people, over 5 million of whom are poor and dispossessed, living at 200% or lower of the federal poverty line. And the concrete way that we have of building power is an organization that I co-founded in 2012 called Put People First Pennsylvania. Folks can mute, that would be great. Thank you so much. I've been organizing for over 20 years, and in that time, what I have come to in my own understanding is that something that I like to say is that every day that we are not organizing the working class as a class, united across lines of division, is a day that we are losing ground. Every day that we're not organizing the working class as a class, united across lines of division, is a day that we are losing ground. So concretely, what we're trying to do in Pennsylvania is to build a vehicle to organize the working class across the state of Pennsylvania, united across lines of division, which is very difficult. We have a large state, and the two main lines of division that the ruling class uses to divide and conquer us here in Pennsylvania are race and geography. So we chose a healthcare as a human rights campaign strategically as a vehicle to help us do the work that we intend to do. So I think one of the lessons that I've come to in my time in organizing is that we actually have to choose campaigns that enable us to build vehicles to develop leaders for the working class. And the theory of change, I think this is another lesson, right? Is like, we should be clear on actually what is our theory of change. How do we believe that change happens? And what is the change that we are seeking? I know that it sounds basic, but I know that for years when I started in organizing, I wasn't aware, I didn't have an awareness and an intention about what my theory of change was, how I actually believed that the transformation of society was going to take place, not only based on my own thoughts and my own beliefs, but actually based on real grounded knowledge of the past, of history, and of present day struggles. So the theory of change that we're working with here in Pennsylvania, in Put People First Pennsylvania, the fundamental problem is the polarization of wealth and poverty, and an untold amount of wealth concentrated in very few hands, while the vast majority of us are dispossessed. So that's our sense of what is the fundamental problem, not only in this country, but around the world. It manifests itself in the evils of racism, white supremacy, poverty, environmental devastation, and militarism. And what can change it, in our estimation, is a united social movement of leaders who have the most to gain and the least to lose. And so then the question becomes, how do we forge such leaders? And for us, we forge them through strategic struggles for our human rights. So that's our theory of change in a nutshell. So I want to speak to leadership development and geography, and then what we call projects of survival. So within our organization, as we wage our healthcare as a human rights campaign, and I don't really want to get into too much into the details of it, you can see it all for yourself at putpeoplefirstpa.org. You can look at our victories, you can look at our history, you can look at the components of our campaign. But everything we do to develop leaders. I know that oftentimes we enter into organizing and the first thing we get told is, well, you've got to, get a victory. That's the only thing that keeps people around. That's the only way that they'll stay. In my experience as an organizer, I think that victory is misunderstood and overrated. Misunderstood because, quite frankly, our class is not in power. We do not have the power to implement our program. So the victories that we talk about oftentimes, a lot of times they're on paper, they're flimsy, right? Or even when they are more significant, we can't necessarily consolidate and sustain them. So we need a different metric for thinking about what victory actually means. And I would suggest that one of the measurements that we need to use to think about what does victory look like as we are building the power to actually throw out the ruling class is leaders that we develop, right? And I think all of the people on this panel tonight are speaking to that. Our conception of leadership, and I think this is another lesson, right, is that people are coming into our organizations with all kinds of ideas. So part of what we need to do is dig up some of the old ideas so that we can make space, right? This is what Kat was speaking to. Make space to develop new concepts on terms that we may believe we already know. Our conception of leadership is we use something called the 4 C's. This is something that was developed by Willie Baptist. Clear, competent, committed, and connected. This is our idea about what does it really mean when we say that we're developing leaders. We need to develop folks who are clear about the root causes of the problem and actually what we're really up against. Competent, right? Have the ability to carry out the work and take initiative. This is something else we heard a lot, right? It's not just about someone telling folks what to do. It's about developing that clarity so that people can take initiative on their own and continue to carry out the strategy. Committed, right, for the long haul, and connected, deeply, deeply connected to people. And this is what we say, this is why we're talking about base building. Something so critical to do, yet that so few actually do. To be honest, right? I think this is a truism throughout this country. So few actually do base building. So an example of this kind of initiative would be that one of our healthcare rights committees in Northeastern PA, some of them may be watching now, at the height of the pandemic, at the end of the year last year, thought to themselves, we need to do something to show healthcare workers throughout the country that they're not alone. But we also need to do that in a way that politicizes what is taking place, right? We have to shift this narrative of like, you all are heroes, right? We love you, you're heroes. And show them that we do love them, but we love them by fighting for a healthcare system that actually puts people over profit. That's the way we can love our healthcare workers, right? So they took the initiative. Thank you. They took the initiative to create that space. And I guess I'll stop there and maybe we can have more discussion later.
Nijmi, I think you probably still have 1 more minute if you want to finish out a thought.
Okay, sure. I guess the last thing I'll say then is, because another theme was this question of intentionality about geography. So we're a statewide organization, and I think that's really important. I want to encourage more people to organize your entire state. The reason for that is because I think we don't have an accurate picture of everyone who needs to be organized until we understand the geography that we're in. And if we're thinking about how do we subvert the forces of reaction, the forces of the right wing, which are being manipulated by the ruling class, that means we've got to be everywhere, especially places where the so-called left or the Democratic Party has abandoned. If we're not there, we leave them to be organized by others. And that is a recipe for disaster. So I really want to encourage folks to really think about this question of geography to get an accurate picture of everyone who actually must be organized. Thank you.